welcome to Let Me Know How It Is, a pop culture podcast about TV, movies, comics, and all things geek. Topic today, superhero costumes and their transition to live action. I'm Zach Slater.
I'm Frank Melman.
This is Tommy Smithereens.
And I'm Clifton.
Okay, so I think this is like one of the fun aspects of superhero movies. I love hearing when something is going to be made, right? So like, let's say that they announce an Alpha Flight movie, right? My first thought is like, well, who's going to play Puck? Right? But then very quickly, I start getting curious about like, well, how's that going to look on screen? And what's the costume going to look like? And I think sometimes things make a wonderful design in the comics pages, but it can look very different when it's on an actual person. And so we're kind of going over that. Like when the costumes are super accurate and they look great on screen, and when they've made changes, and when it works, when it doesn't work. So we're going to get into all of it. So I thought we would start at a nice familiar one that practically everybody's seen. So let's jump in with like the Raimi Spider-Mans and share our thoughts on that, because this is an interesting one, because this is like pretty comic accurate, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Talking Spider-Man here, not Green Goblin just yet. We'll get into that. What did you guys think?
I mean, I like the costume. I thought are we talking about the first one? The very first? Yeah, I like the Raimi Spider-Man costume. I think it was pretty good. It's not a bad, it's not as, I remember the main thing was like early on, it looked like there was more of a gold to the eyes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
which was a little different, but I think it was just the sun reflecting of the posters or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember that.
But then it became much more apparent that it was more like it was opaque, so that it was more like in the comics with almost like a smoky kind of weight to it.
Yeah, and the pink was kind of an interesting thing that we saw creep into even Amazing Spider-Man, which we'll get into after, just keeping with the Spider-Man stuff. But yeah, I mean that it was weird how sometimes, and some of the photographs and some of the even shots of the movie that it would read almost like a different color.
Mm-hmm.
Than like the pure white that you typically will see when you're looking at Spider-Man in the books and stuff.
Oh, for the eye lenses.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I remember reading it's an early Spider-Man appearance, Amazing Fantasy 15 or some of the early Amazing Spider-Man stuff. But there's a like costume breakdown that they had drawn and written into the book. And it points to the eyes and says they're reflective sunglasses. Like basically, that's what they are. They're like they're like the two-way mirrors.
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically anything works, really. We're used to it seeing white because that's how they would always represent it in the colors. But they were supposed to be like a reflective lens of sorts.
I even think there's an early appearance. I don't know if it's Amazing Fantasy 15 or if it's Amazing 1 that has like dots within.
Yeah. Like
eyes.
It's a mesh, like it's screen.
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, it's a funny look, looking back on it. But I think at that point they weren't quite sure
how he was seen.
Yeah, whether they wanted to make give him a point of reference of where his eye would be looking at that point.
Oh yeah, like pupils. Yeah,
yeah,
I gotcha.
So they did. There is an issue like that. I think it's Amazing 1, but I think they did a great job with that aspect of it. It's certainly not a costume. The Raimi one doesn't look like it's a costume that's sewn.
Right.
No, I mean, certainly not put together by a kid.
No,
right.
You're never gonna get that bit of like Peter's had a costume that smells like smoke, or he's been in the sewers fighting the lizard, and therefore he's got to come up with a new costume because the one that he has reeks.
Right.
And there's no scene like I remember early on. There's scenes of like great ditko shots of like panels of Peter trying to thread a needle, and he's like, now I got to sew my costume,
Right.
But no, with that costume for sure, with the texture of it, I think is that where we first get the first idea of like it looks like the surface. Is it that one or the one that's in the next one, the next iteration where it's kind of like the surface of a basketball?
That's the second one.
That's the second iteration. Yeah, that's the Andrew Garfield stuff.
The first one does have like very 3D webbing on it.
Yeah.
Very raised webbing.
Mm-hmm.
Which kind of reflected silverish too.
Yes.
Sometimes, which is the thing. It wasn't a pure black.
Right.
Again, like you typically see in the books, right? That webbing is always black in the costume. And to our knowledge, it's never raised.
No.
in the comics.
Again, it's supposed to be, it's supposed to be it's supposed to just be part of the material, not like it's a raised webbing.
Yeah.
Again, not that it's bad or the idea of like it. I mean, silver would read more like actual webbing.
Yeah.
Like the quality of an actual web, I guess, is what maybe they're going for when they went for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like it. I think it was a good representation for not being completely comic accurate. I think it's a really good representation of Spider-Man. I think it works.
I don't mind the silver webbing. Like, I get used to it, and I agree with you. I think that's the design, is that it's supposed to look more spider webby, right? I guess to resemble the color of it.
Right.
I'm speaking in air quotes, which you guys can't see, but you know what I mean. I think the weird thing that comes into that is that like the 3D like piping, I'll call it, like comes off of the spider itself, like on his chest. And so I think like that's kind of a funny thing when that spider is not black.
Yeah,
I think it's kind of an odd thing. And my other thing with that costume is kind of going back to what you were saying, Frank, where it looks like it's not something made by a kid. What I appreciate about it, though, is the way that the movie depicts the costume when he's not wearing it, and it does look like something that he could just throw in a backpack.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? I like that. I like that it looks in that way. Like I'm thinking of the shot in Spider-Man 2 when it's hanging out of the garbage can after he throws it away, and it does look not clothy, but it looks it looks flexible. It looks, it looks thin, and then of course when he's wearing it, it doesn't look like the Batman rubber costumes, but there's something to it. There's a heft to it when he's wearing it. Which, yeah. So this costume changed, as far as I could tell, very little to Spider-Man 2.
Right.
But Spider-Man 3, do you guys want to get into the black costume a little bit?
Yeah, we can talk about that. Sure, why not?
Yeah.
I thought that, again, for an idea of for what they were doing, the idea that they were trying to, do the black costume without doing Secret Wars and without doing Venom, I kind of wish they had gone a little more authentic with the actual costume. I mean, it's a nice mirror image. It's fine. It works for what they need it to be. But I was hoping for, I've always been a fan of the black and white costume. I know some artists really like it because it was way easier to draw. But as for those set of movies, I think it's fine. It was one of the things where I was always kind of I would still like to see live action what that black and white costume would look like.
Yeah, it's a little heartbreaking for me.
Yeah,
I remember because it's what they went with. I think makes some logical sense, right? That like, why would this thing redesign his suit, right?
Right.
It's just okay. It's just I'm gonna be a black glob that goes over top your costume, so it's the same costume just in black. And I think I'm like, okay, like I get it. That seems to make, like I said, like a logical sense. But I think that black costume is like one of the coolest looking costumes in all of comics. I think
you're talking about the actual comics one.
Yeah, the actual comics one.
It's one of the most iconic in comics.
Yeah. No, I'm a big fan of that one.
I remember when that first poster came out, and it was just the suit from the other two movies in black. I was like, oh.
Is this just a black and white picture? Did they just grayscale this?
I wanted to see like the big white spider and everything.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Yeah, that one was a little heartbreaking for me.
Right. It does work in the context of their movie, like you said. But yeah, it does definitely disappointing not to see the big white spider.
Yeah.
Right.
All across the front.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that was also the one that like Spectacular Spider-Man played around with too.
Right.
Just as a quick note, but they did something different too, where like it taking over Peter, the spider was getting bigger, and that was sort of like the visual of it like taking control over him, which I thought was interesting. But
would have sold much more toys if they went with the big white spider instead of just a black version of the regular suit. I think.
Yeah, I think so too. More Halloween costumes also. I'm sure of it.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'll leave it up to you guys. Do you guys want to jump into Amazing Spider-Man, or just to stick with Spider-Man the character? Or do you want to go into some of the bad guys from the Raimi stuff?
Let's talk about let's talk about the Raimi bad guys, and then we can jump to the other one.
Bring on the bad guys.
All right,
please.
Let's do it.
As they say.
Yes.
So Green Goblin. Let's start with him and go.
He looks like a Power Ranger.
He does.
That's what I hear.
Yes.
and it's true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was. I mean, they did tests for them for like a traditional goblin. I think, right? There are pictures out of that. I think I've seen
so.
over the years, and yeah, at the time that probably wasn't the way to go with the tools they had either. So I'm not sure what they could have done.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I thought there was. I thought that at some point there was, like at least artists' ideas of what we could have gotten if we had gotten prosthetics.
Right. Yeah.
And
yeah,
I thought
I've seen like a makeup version that's prosthetic makeup.
Yeah.
For Dafoe, for Willem Dafoe to have. And I don't know if it's one of those things where he would, I think right around the time he had just done that Nosferatu movie.
Right.
Mm.
Shadow of the Vampire, I think it was called.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. But I think it was one of those things where he was kind of like told he wouldn't have to worry about being, in a lot of makeup, maybe. I don't really know if that's the deal.
Okay. I could see that.
And he was kind of like, no, I'm good if I don't have to, be all made up all the time.
Right.
But
yeah.
I for one would have loved to have seen, even if it would have been like one of those, Shadow of the Vampire. That's the one.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if they had just gone with something, even if it had been like a mask, like even a souped up better like Halloween mask that doesn't make sense. Like in the comics, when someone takes off a mask and it mimics their face, and then they take it off and it's perfectly they're human underneath or whatever.
Right, like a Mission Impossible mask.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would have gone with that. Fine.
Yeah, that's my thing too. Like, because I think about it, I'm like, you cast an actor that has maybe one of the most expressive faces in all of Hollywood.
Right.
And you're hiding that behind a thing that doesn't move.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, that was my thing. Always thinking about it. I'm like, it would have been so cool if they went with a mask or went with like a makeup thing that they said was a mask.
Right. I mean, they try
that's my, I mean, like looking at the Spider-Man costume where the camera's kind of lying to us, where, like I said, like, the costume itself, when it's on Tobey Maguire, has some heft to it. Mm-hmm. But then you're going to tell me that it's this flexible thing that gets tossed around.
Right.
Like, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with you just having something that allowed his facial expressions to shine through, and then just tell me like, oh, it's this thing that he puts on and off. And
they try to give it a logical reason, for it's like the part of the battle suit. They give, they set up that in the script, so that's, to be why it's a little more, more than being like the chemicals in a mask and all that. I mean, we still get that moment of, the Smilex gas or whatever it is that changes, that affects his brain and gives him, But there's also the moment like where we see the wall in the house, right? Yeah. Where he's got all the different, different tribal masks or masks that he's collected. So it makes a little more sense that he's wearing this Power Rangers outfit. But I remember in the scene where they're on the roof for the first time, and I see, in a really good quality, like an HD version of the film, when I saw it the first time, you can see his mouth moving. Like he's actually like, it's not a cheat. They're not dubbing it. He's actually wearing this outfit.
Right. Yeah. You can see his eyes in there sometimes.
Yeah. And it's just, it's distracting. Like, I just feel like, as you said, there's no expressive quality to it.
The fact that the lenses come up. This is just me. I haven't read this anywhere, but I think that's Raimi realizing like I need an avenue for more expression out of this, and that's why they come up and you can see his eyes and stuff. Because I love that movie. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely love that movie. But that scene is always odd to me because it's like it does look like a Power Ranger episode because there's no mouths moving
right
anywhere,
Yeah, I remember at the time, even when seeing it in the theater, I was like, well, maybe it's not him. Maybe he didn't feel like putting on, oh, no, he's wearing it.
Right.
So, I think it's a missed opportunity to go especially when you look back at like the old Romita Goblin appearances in the comics and how expressive the Goblin face is as well.
Yeah.
It just was one of those things. And granted, it's the whole idea of wearing a mask and still retaining all of the stuff that you have with, an actual mask would not work, but in the comics it does. And I don't know how they would have done it as well in the movies, but I wish they at least had tried. So.
Right.
And now since then, that was before they introduced the concept of like hulked out Goblin in the comics. So, I mean, Ultimate Spider-Man had started right around the same time that the movie came out, but the movie had certainly gone into production before Ultimate Spider-Man started. but everything since then has kind of gone with that. And I feel like that movie probably would have too if they had thought of it,
Right.
of having like the serum also Hulk him out into some form. Because I mean, like we're going to talk about Amazing did that, and then they've done it in animated series. They did it in Spider-Verse when we see Goblin for a second. He's hulked out Goblin.
Right.
But they just hadn't gotten to that yet in the comics.
Yeah, I imagine whatever version we get next live action is not going to be a traditional costume Goblin glider kind of. I think it's going to be much more of the actual Goblin looking hulked out version.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That mask does look cool when it's on that armchair, though.
Well, yeah.
I didn't think about it. Like, it wasn't in my notes, but Frank, when you brought it up, I'm like, that is a scene where it works really well.
Mm-hmm.
I think. Yeah. All right. So let's move on to Doc Ock then. Bad guy Spider-Man 2.
So Doc Ock works.
Yeah.
I think so too.
They don't get that one wrong at all.
Yeah.
No. Well, there's even the great bit of, the Raimi camera shot of when the tentacles are working to save him when he's out.
Yeah.
Even that, like that to me is like, it's a staple of Raimi stuff. And then it's just also the idea of how great that, that seemed to be thought out much better than in, the Goblin. And Molina is able to do a lot more scenery chewing as Octavius that way.
Yeah.
Without having, granted, I mean, Dr. Octopus doesn't have any kind of mask or anything, but.
Right.
No, just the sunglasses and stuff.
Yeah. The goggles, to the goggle type things.
And a bad haircut. That's all he's really ever had.
and a lab coat. That's all you need.
Yeah.
Well, that was the thing that they didn't do at any point. Like, because he's in a trench coat a lot, and that was the one thing I'm like, I would have liked to have seen him in the lab coat costume just for a scene.
Right.
It reads similar enough, though.
Yeah.
Talking about the tentacles scene, though, like the hospital scene is when it becomes like a horror movie. That's so jarring. You're like, oh yeah, there's Sam Raimi.
Right.
Like that's the Sam Raimi we all know directing this one scene again.
Right.
Like you get a tentacle POV shot.
Yes. Yep.
That's a fun scene, though. Yeah,
it's great.
Just
Scene.
kicking the crap at all the doctors.
Yeah,
yeah. It was cool stuff. And then Spider-Man 3, you get Sandman, which is it's like he's pulled out of the comics,
right?
Yeah, no, I think visually for that one, I think they did an amazingly, no pun intended. It's a really good job of conveying, that scene where he's forming for the first time is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention the fact that he looks just like, was it Flint Marko? Is that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah, Flint Marko. Like, it looks like he's right out of the comics. My issues with Spider-Man 3 aren't related to that. I mean, I don't like what they did with this character, but I think visually, I think they did I think visually looks great.
Right.
Yeah, I do too. Like he, like the sweater, never like the striped sweater, like it works perfectly. It doesn't look odd.
No.
There's no, what I like about it is that there's no like dumb explanation for the sweater. Like,
right.
You know what I mean? It's just like, it's just what he put on. That's it.
Well,
Yeah.
Just a dude happens to wear a sweater.
Yeah.
That day while he's in the particle accelerator.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, they could have attempted to do the one that the costume that he sometimes wore with the Frightful Four, but I'm glad what they did with the traditional like Ditko. Well, basically what his costume has been for, was it 60 years or whatever?
Right.
Yep.
And then in Spider-Man 3, they took another swing at a goblin.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like missed again on a goblin, because we went from Power Rangers to paintball goblin.
Until you said that, Clifton, I completely forgot that he was even in it. Yeah. I thought we were going to concentrating on Venom and Sandman. I completely forgot that he's in that opening bit. You're absolutely right. That's how forgettable that costume or an attempt was. I mean, like I mean, it's one of those things where I thought at the time, I think was like, why didn't they? I mean, granted, you could have done Green Goblin 2 and fixed the stuff that you didn't do with the first one.
Right.
Because Harry's the Goblin a couple times in the comics, and he basically steals his dad, look and everything.
Yeah.
Or you could have gone a step further and made him a hobgoblin. I'm granted it's not in the books that Harry does that, but you could have at least visually sold more action figures by having.
And it feels like they were trying to straddle that in the movie, because they took I feel like there was hobgoblin colors given to him. Like he had some orange.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, it was an odd one because it's like, yeah, he doesn't have like the fixation on the mask. So my thought is like, okay, well, maybe that's the avenue why he doesn't have it. But then I'm like, but he's taking his dad's mantle, who did. So I feel like he would have gone with the whole mask thing. And it's just, it seems like a step backward, right? It seems like that movie was 2007 where we were starting to get some comic accurate stuff like in that same movie, like what we were saying. And then that one feels so reserved, which was typically what you got in comic book stuff from, you know, made in the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s and stuff like that, you know?
Right.
We're like, let's change it.
Yeah.
Like all black. They're going to be in all black.
Yeah, we can't possibly make it comics accurate.
Yeah. And then what about Venom really quick?
I thought Venom worked.
Yeah.
I don't think, again, it's one of those, the problems with Venom aren't necessarily the look. I thought the look for Venom was fine. I didn't have a problem with it.
Yeah, I'm with you too. Yeah, for some reason, like, it doesn't stick out quite as much as the black costume on Spider-Man as no, like, I'm like, it feels right. Like, that one feels right to me. You know? Yeah.
Yeah, I was fine with that. I didn't really have much issue with that.
All right. So then they redid Spider-Man for Amazing Spider-Man with Andrew Garfield. And that was the one that you said, like, had the basketball
right
texture on it. And this, I think, is probably the biggest departure. And I think the biggest, like, let's try something new. So, and this is the one also that had like the orange eyes.
Yeah.
Like it was always orange, which was the thing, which was a little odd to me. And so I'll let you guys get into it, but this was an odd costume for me. Don't hate it, just odd.
No, it was odd. It just, I don't know. I guess it was them trying to be different because I know you guys like the first 3 iterations, well, at least the shiny suit Spider-Man is what I like to call it.
Yeah, that's good.
This one, it wasn't quite as shiny, but texture-ish. Like, I can't help but think with Frank's right with the basketball suit Spidey, but it just felt, I don't know, disjointed.
Yeah. Because
like,
they had sneakers, which is weird.
I don't know. I appreciate the sneakers. I get that, those little hints, but I don't know. It just, the first one felt like he was trying to go to the Met Gala as opposed to this one. He's trying to ball at home or something.
Right. No, I get, again, like, I get the logic of like the sneakers, right? To be like, so he's just in socks? Is that what it is? Right?
No, he's in he's in those shoes things that you can, like, looks like your feet. That's what I always thought.
Well, yeah, but it's like, but they made it, it had like silver detailing to it. And I remember it was weird because it called so much attention to it. Like when you saw it, and it was just like, wow, like they didn't go with something more subtle. You know?
Well, this time he's amazing. Remember that. It's gotta be amazing.
Right. Yeah, and I'm looking back on it, I didn't really like the back of it either. Like I didn't, I prefer the big, again, traditional Spider-Man spider on the back. Yeah, again, a lot of what I mean, the costume's okay. It's not awful, but it's definitely not I wouldn't rank it as my favorite Spider-Man costume. And then there's just the fact that what my issues with both those movies are not the costuming so much.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I get you there. I think, so for me, for the Amazing Spider-Man, the second costume I liked a lot more. The one he wore in Amazing 2, I thought, because the eyes got so big on it, and they were like like the first time in the movies that we saw, it was like a pristine, like clean white on it. And I remember looking at that, and they were kind of rounded, and I was like, that looks like the comics. Whoa, okay, that's cool.
Right.
And that was like my favorite Spider-Man costume on film until Tom Holland showed up.
Right.
But yeah, I thought for the time, Amazing 2 was maybe the most accurate. Yeah. Most faithful, I should say. Not accurate, most faithful to the comics. Which I have to assume that it was just slightly maybe backlash from the design of the first one.
Probably so.
So yeah, so that was the one I didn't realize like how much the eyes really makes it for me. And then And then Tom Holland gets his Spider-Man costume, and then they go a step further, and the eyes move. The eyes are expressive, and I'm like, okay,
Right.
That's the best one.
Yeah, no, that's one thing I love about the Tom Holland costume is the fact that they finally were like, no, we could do that. That works. We've done it in the comics for a while, so why not do it?
They would always cheat on that in the comics.
Yeah.
Where you'd never be like, why is he squinting here? You never ask.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, why would the mask take on the properties of his eyes? That makes no sense. Yeah.
But they found an acceptable solution that we'll swallow.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And I like the brightness of it too. It's a bright blue.
Yeah.
Like in Civil War, at least. Like, End of Far From Home, not so much. It's End of Far From Home, I remember, it's almost black.
Yeah, it is.
Right? But yeah, I remember Civil War. I'm like, man, that's like, it's so bright. And I'm like, this is perfect. It's absolutely perfect. I love it.
And even that, like in the early appearances, that coloring was really dark in the coloring on the Ditko arc, where you're like, are we only seeing blue as like a highlight? Or is it actually supposed to be blue?
Right.
Right.
So yeah, I can take it in different shades.
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
I kind of like in Homecoming, not the official suit, but what he was flying around the neighborhood with.
The sweatshirt and the swim goggles.
Yes, I kind of like that only because maybe wrong. I understand the comics had him with the a needle and thread, and he was amazing, but. The fact that he cobbled together his own stuff in order to hide his identity was like just a nice home touch that was more appreciated,
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a nice, I know there's lots of people that don't like the aspect of the fact that there's a lot of people that complain about the fact that, again, this isn't a suit that a kid would cobble together. Yeah. And we get to see it in Civil War, what a kid would cobble together, and in Homecoming too.
Yeah.
And I like that too, because again, it's one of those, I like the whole thing of, no, he's his own man. I know, he's not above getting help, but he's his own man. Yes. Right. But, I think it's one of those things where I agree with you, Tommy, the idea that it's nice to see that they at least nod to that, because in what's the second one?
Far From Home.
I mean, basically he has, he basically has a moment like in a video game where he basically gets to design his own suit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's very much a video game of like, oh, cool, I can take all the aspects I like from different things and build my Spider-Man suit. Which again, if Tony Stark was your surrogate father, why wouldn't you? And the other thing is that people need to remember is the fact that, while a lot of the stuff is rooted in the Ditko and Stan Lee or Romita stuff, a lot of this MCU stuff is all Ultimate.
Yeah.
And it's it's the Ultimate Universe. It's not the same, Iron Man's a much bigger figure earlier on than he is in the 60s stuff. So I accept it. I have no problem with the costume being, I think it's funny, but I think it's one of those things where I don't need to see Peter necessarily with the needle and thread, but I'm glad also that they did nod to it.
Yeah, I like that they tied the story into the costume too, right? Like it does explain that. Okay, like the costume we know is the one that Tony gives him, which I think is a neat idea. But I like that in the finale, as much as like you don't get the visual of him in the actual costume in the finale, but it is neat that it's like it's just him. It's just right, and I'm not doing this with, like you were saying, with the help and everything. Like it's just me and I'm doing it, and I like that. I just think of that scene where he's talking and he's like, I'm nothing without the suit. Right. And it's just like just the fact that the suit is a important part of the story is what I appreciate so much from Homecoming.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So we did a lot on Spider-Man. So where do you guys want to go? You guys want to go to early movies where it wasn't so faithful, or you want to go into the more later stuff?
We can talk about the early stuff, I think.
Okay.
Just to give an idea of what it was like watching live action superheroes in the Dark Ages.
Yeah, I mean, there was a sense early on that, I mean, I heard this in the comic store repeated multiple times. It was just like, oh, you can't do how it looks in the comics because it's going to look goofy and it's going to not photograph well, and so you have to change it. Mm-hmm. This is why the X-Men aren't in yellow.
Right.
Well, right?
No, yeah, you're right. No, but I was hoping that you would talk about what you talked to me earlier.
Okay.
Like the best interpretation of that is the evolution of Captain America's suit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Like it's funny how in the first movie, the first Avenger, you get the iconic suit, and it looks terrible.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And then with each iteration we see them slowly turn it into something more comfortable. Like you see the wings on his head poke out when he's doing the bits on America, like they're filming him as a hero with the pictures.
Mm-hmm.
But when he actually goes to battle, there's no wings; it's just painted on, like what you see in the Avengers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you slowly see it creep into something definitely more cooler than what it starts out to be.
Yeah, there was a learning curve with Cap, I think, where I think the look of the suit he fights in First Avenger is really cool, but I remember that being like pretty polarizing. Like before the movie came out, when there was just like the images out. Right?
Mm-hmm.
People were like, it doesn't look like this, it doesn't look like the comic suit.
Right.
And people were a little upset about that. I remember a friend of ours, Dan, who was one of those that was a little upset with it. And he's like, you can't tell me that the suit would have looked dumb in the 40s because they designed that suit in the 40s.
Right.
Right.
Sure.
You know?
But the outfit does look like the Ultimates Captain America outfit.
Well, again, right. That's the thing is like it's definitely an Ultimates, more of an Ultimates heavy influence Cap. I mean, I for one don't really have a problem. I mean, I would have liked to have seen more. I mean, I love the way that they incorporated in First Avenger, in the first one, where they incorporate the classic suit in the dance number when he's on the USO tour. I think that's brilliant. Like that's one of my things I love about that movie is the idea of like, okay, he becomes more of a, like when he's drawing the picture of himself as the monkey on the unicycle because he's not being able to do anything important because they're afraid of losing him. But the idea that they, we get to that classic Kirby and Simon costume that way is great. But I mean, it's still one of those things where I kind of agree with Dan that like I would have liked to have at least seen him try to do something with it, even though I understand the influences aren't just the classic 30s 40s stuff. So
yeah, and so he would have that suit for the first one, and then Avengers they went with the more like spandexy. Right, like I mean, it's the most spandex looking costume I can think of worn in a comic book movie that isn't right. That's not like Black Widow or something. Well, what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, there's also a little of that. Like we get a little of that. They get referential about it in Endgame, don't they? When they go back to that point in time.
Well, yeah. I mean, and I think, but. That's kind of, I mean, it just, there are moments when he's wearing that suit. I think that there was just, like, you could see it in his cameo in Dark World when Loki, like, shapeshifts to Cap for a second, and that's the suit he's wearing. He's like, God, it's so tight.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
And then you go to Winter Soldier, and Winter Soldier, like, for the finale, goes back to the Cap suit from the first movie. But you have that really awesome, like the Shield costume.
Yeah,
like the all blue with the silver. Like that may be one of my favorite Cap suits.
Yeah,
in all of the movies. But the one that I think
that one was a play on the comic suit around the same time,
right? And the one that sticks though, like doesn't come until Ultron, and that's the one that's sort of it has some heft to it, so it's not the spandexy one, but it does have like the red and white on the stomach,
right?
And the mask does look a little more like a helmet, and I think that's the one that we've seen sort of like a take on that, or that's the guts that we see for all of the costume he wears throughout.
Yeah.
Right. Infinity War is a different suit because it's meant to be that, but weathered. Right. It's meant to be like messed up and the star faded and.
Right. Well, it's to indicate what. Yeah. But it's also. I mean, it's also indicate where they've been on the run for forever and.
Sure.
All that, just where they are, it reflects a lot more of where they were story wise too. But no, I really like the Age of Ultron suit. I think it's a really good, a good modern take on Cap suit, since you can't do like the swashbuckler boots and all that stuff. Yeah. But but the colors are also a lot. I mean, they're not nearly as bright as there's that shot of when, Hawkeye and Black Widow and Cap are walking to the Quinjet, and I'm always like, ugh. That's when they walk in Avengers, like, I guess it's in Avengers when they go to they're going to New York, it doesn't look quite right. But I think Age of Ultron definitely looks like a much better current take on the suit, and it works.
Yeah. What I like too, this is a stupid thing, but for me, this is neat. And I like that he is sometimes photographed in Age of Ultron, like in just the pants of the costume, but not the top. But he's got like the Under Armour, like product placement thing that he's wearing.
Right.
But what I like about that is it does humanize it a little bit to me. Like the idea that Cap wears an undershirt, like under that, I think is really cool. You know, and it does just add stuff like, okay, it gets hot, and he's going to take it off, and he's going to be comfortable. It's a neat,
shorthand.
It's a neat shorthand. It's fun just to see it like get stripped down like that.
Right.
You know, but going back to the Dark Ages when we were saying when everybody would sort of like had it in their heads that you couldn't do the thing in the costume, the thing in the comics.
Right.
Right. The one that really like kicked the door open for me where I'm like, no, that's not right was Hellboy. When Hellboy came out and I'm like, oh, like that's the book top to bottom and it looks great.
Sure.
Like, okay, now I don't believe, right? Because it was in my head that like that the leather jumpsuit for X-Men like was the only decision you can do. Right. Yeah. Like it had to be this. And then I saw Hellboy and I'm like, no, it's now coming to me that it's how you shoot it and what's the world look, what's the set pieces and the art direction around the movie look like and how is it lit? And you can convince me now that, okay, like we can go with something that is more bright colored and more comic accurate and it will look good.
Right.
You know,
well, I agree with you. I'm not saying that you're wrong because I think Hellboy is a perfect example of comic. You can shoot this stuff and not have it look ridiculous. But I think even if you go back further and you say something like for all of its camp and all of its goofiness, I mean, there's a lot about Batman 66 that does work comic book wise. Yeah, I mean, a lot of those costumes don't read poorly on the screen.
No, they don't. You're right.
I mean, there's a reason. That's part of the reason why that show endures is the fact that a lot of those costumes really did pop and really did look great. And I don't mean to say pop because it shouldn't be a big sound effect, but the idea that like the Joker was the Joker and the Riddler's clearly the Riddler and Catwoman's clearly they're all who they're supposed to be,
right? Comics
wise. I mean, there's nothing that they don't really deviate from like the classic takes on a lot of them. I mean, I think Riddler's the only one that might get, unless the Joker's doing a bit. I think most of them I think Riddler gets 2 costumes, right?
Yeah, because he's sometimes got like the suit jacket.
Right.
Yeah, and then other times he's got the pajamas.
Yeah, the footy pajamas being the Riddler, right? Depending on whether it was Gorshin or Gomez Adams, John Astin.
Yeah, but I mean, and the thing that you're making me realize too is that, like, yeah, there are moments where like they're in Catwoman's hideout and it's clearly a set and it's got like all these weird cat statues and stuff like that. And that's clearly like a very, very, very like we designed this to look this way. But when they're on the street and they do exteriors and stuff, like it doesn't look weird. Like it like.
Well, no, I'm like when they do something like on the steps of City Hall, I mean, it works fine. I mean, there's none, or there's moments like when there's the color, the joke again, the Joker's doing a bit and there's colored smoke and, he just pops out of wherever and he's, laughing madly and all that kind of stuff. I think that works fine. I just think that when comics and culture push back on that is where they decided, oh, no, we're not campy. We can't look like what this show was, which I think is a shame because that wasn't the thing. I mean, again, I don't think I know some people have a hard time. I'm one of them. I can't say that I love that show since I watched it as a kid. I definitely was like, for a while. And now I've come back around and like, no, I absolutely love that show. But I do think from a cultural standpoint, there was a lot of pushback on the idea of looking anything like that. And ever since then, it's been, well, we have to do black or we have to do muted tones or we have to, come up with a reason why someone would wear this. I'm like, take all the, for lack of a better term, fun out of it.
Right.
there's a reason why you're drawn to a brightly colored character doing something heroic or villainous in a comic book. There's a reason why you're drawn to it. It's because it's designed to draw your eye to it.
So okay, you guys can back me up on this or correct me on that. But so when Batman 89 came out,
Mm-hmm.
there had not been any version in the comics where Batman had been dressed in all black.
No, because at that point you're talking 89. So right before that is there's still you're coming off of like Dark Knight's the biggest thing in the world, like Batman wise, right before it. Right.
I think that is the closest where it was gray and black.
Right.
With no blue.
Right.
Yeah. And even still, I mean, and it is blue for an issue.
Yes.
Right.
Also, I mean, yeah, there's costume changes in that, and there's a stripping down and a darkness that you see over time. But yeah, but it's never all black in that book.
No.
Right. And so it was never all black anywhere else.
Right.
No.
Right. And then that movie comes out and it's like, whoa, what's this?
Right. Yeah, I think, but it's also, around that time is when you start to get the whole thing of like, people start to realize that every single comic book article outside of comics are talking about how the industry is growing up or whatever is always like starts the same as, we're no longer I remember vividly, it's like Rolling Stone and like other publications were like, this is not the Batman 66 zany, goofy Batman stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There was definitely a delineation of like, oh no, this is not where we are anymore.
Which is funny because ironically, I think Tim Burton was literally trying to make Batman 66. I think that movie is Tim Burton's version of Batman 66.
But think about how much of like, as much as you want to say, oh, there's a pushback on, I mean, you can argue the Batman stuff for sure, because Batman's all in black and then you've got the yellow symbol. The Joker, on the other hand,
the weird yellow symbol, hang on, which I will point out.
Okay.
Because it's got that barbed bat tail.
Mm-hmm.
In the costume, which is an odd change on the logo, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you guys look at pictures of Batman 89, just that first movie, the bat logo is different. It's got extra barbs on the tail, which is strange because the logo itself for the movie poster and the VHS tape, that's not on the bat logo.
Yeah,
and so it was always an odd, like even as a kid, I'm looking at it, I'm like, I wonder why they did that just for the movie.
Right.
But the advertising, the marketing doesn't have any of that. Didn't follow that. Anyway, that was just a quick sidebar. I wanted to jump in because you brought up the logo.
Right.
But
then, there's that. And then, but like the Joker, on the other hand, is it's hard to argue that's not the Joker. Right.
Right.
I mean, that's, it's the prosthetics, it's Nicholson, it's purple and green. And then, scene to scene, depending on what he's trying to do, or, he's pulling, whatever caper he's pulling at that moment, I still, I love it's your Uncle Bingo time to pay the check. I love that look.
Right.
That costuming is awesome. There's nothing wrong with that.
Mm.
But I think they don't shy away from it at all, I think, for the Joker. I think Batman's kind of a radical take. And I think when they get to Batman Returns, they tone it down from being such a black to more of a dark blue.
Yeah, a little bit. It reads a little more gray to me.
Okay.
But it's almost the same costume, except that the logo is changed back to the traditional one.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got like the weird robot abs, is what I call it. Because it's like, it's not like muscle sculpting on the abs. It's like a square,
right,
with like lines, which is an interesting, because it makes me go like, well, why does it have to be muscles? Like, why does it have to be actually muscles always? Like, it can be this approximation. But that said, I think the first movie looks better when it's actual abs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where one of the things I've always wondered about where they would have gone with it had they had gone with the whole, especially when they get to like the other movies. But yeah, I think when, we've talked about it before and other stuff, the idea that, the Penguin is definitely a departure from anything in the books or anything that we'd seen in live action before. And that even goes on to inform the Batman the Animated Series because, for a while, and then we don't get explained when we get to the Red Skies, but, the Penguin has flipper hands and, all that stuff.
And that creeps in from time to time. And sometimes you get takes that's kind of a quasi like combination of it, where like he's got regular hands, but his teeth are sharp.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I've seen where people like the Tim Burton like grotesqueness of Penguin is kind of on a scale for other people when they draw him, I think.
Right.
Because like Tim Sale plays with it a little bit, but doesn't commit quite as much.
Right.
You know.
Well, I remember. I mean, like I remember some Batman stuff around that time in the '90s. You had like Sam Keith's, like, I remember, I think he did the Penguin. The Penguin had, I don't know if it's like Legends of the Dark Knight or one of those books, but his Penguin definitely had like the pointy, sharp teeth. And like in the Batman version of the Penguin,
has some of flippers.
Yeah, has that too, right?
Mm-hmm. He's got flippers and sharp teeth.
Sam Keith was a very stylized artist because his Batman ears would go up and up until they kind of curled back over.
Right.
I love Sam Keith's art. It's so much fun.
Yeah. But that's the one that I was thinking of. Yeah, and I forgot about Tim Sale. You're right about Tim Sale too. That he would do that. But what I was also thinking was, you know, you can't argue that Catwoman costume definitely, you know, that one is iconic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And again, that's not something we had really gotten ever before then. Catwoman had a lot of looks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she did.
A lot of different costumes from her first appearance in Batman 1. But, you know, that one is one that I don't know. I don't know if it's easy to say that it informed more of the choices going forward.
Mm-hmm.
But we definitely got more of a, you know, head to toe leather take from that point on, or vinyl, because it's a vinyl look in Batman Returns.
Right. Yeah, I mean, interesting that the most prominent aspect of that costume doesn't really pop up all that often, and that's the big pronounced stitching.
No, like, I mean, when they had the 80th anniversary recently, like, I think there was one of the covers might have, and again, we don't really get that in the books, but I think that's one of the ones like I don't know if someone did a cover or there's a pinup or something around that time for it, just to acknowledge it. I think there might have been like a variant cover around that for her own book.
Yeah,
that someone drew. Like,
I'm gonna say something about the Batman costumes that may be controversial. Maybe you guys agree, maybe not. I'm gonna say this. I think by and large, from '89 on, I think the suit gets worse and worse every time.
I could say that. I mean, it's not too. I don't think that's too controversial.
I think I like Batman Returns a little less than Batman '89.
Right.
Okay.
I like Batman Forever a little less than Returns because the belt's not gold,
right?
In that one. Then Batman and Robin, where it's all black completely. The emblem's black, the utility belt's black. I'm not gonna say anything about bat nipples because it really doesn't bother me that much. I don't care.
Okay.
Right.
I really don't. But Batman Begins, I love that movie so much. But like I like a pointy bat ear. Yeah. And it's like, and that one's like so thick.
You don't want bat nubs.
Yeah. And like, I like the Dark Knight suit. I like because it does appear to be the most like mobile. It does, like, you know.
I think. Well, I mean, to go back to the bat nubs of the bat, you know, that costume. I think that I always read that as like they were trying to do what Miller does in Year One, and it just didn't work.
Right. Okay.
So they didn't want to make them too long to look like some of the other, but like the Tim Burton stuff or the Schumacher stuff. But yeah, I think they just went because, you know, in Year One he's got that sort of like almost to me it almost reads like going back to Batman 6 or going back to the Batman 66 stuff, kind of like the hats that Catwoman's male henchman wore, right? You know, you can see it, right? Yeah, I mean,
that was always the thing that bothered me about the 66 one is that the ears like barely pop up past his head. You know? Yeah.
But I think that was what to me, that's what I think. I read it that way in Batman Begins was the idea like, oh, they're trying to go Year One Miller, and it's not a bad look. I think Miller and it's Mazzucchelli. I'll come back to B. But and
there's something with the mouth hole too. I think the mouth hole's a little small and a little narrow, and I think looks okay. But I mean, like that detail alone, I mean, there's 100 different ways of like how much is too much of the jaw to expose, right? And what this is too little, you know. I mean, the number of tests that you could do just on that, I think, is, you know, countless.
Right.
And overall, like it just started shifting more tactical gear. It just became more paramilitary over time, more and more and more.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
As other stuff, like that aesthetic just started catching on in general and other things too.
Yeah.
And kind of where everyone would like, oh, superheroes should look like a SWAT team or something.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then we don't get like a comic accurate faithful until Justice League or Dawn of Justice, I should say, which for all its faults, I give them that. I'm like, they're the first to try the gray and black.
Right. Sure.
And that's the only good thing you'll hear me say about that movie. But
right. They got that.
Yeah. You did that part right.
Right.
But,
so we can round up the Schumacher and Tim Burton stuff. I was thinking more along the lines of I always wondered what because again they lay the groundwork in Batman and then they go a different direction because I guess they don't have Billy D. Williams. They have Tommy Lee Jones for Two-Face. So I was kind of wondering what they were going to do with that.
mm-hmm.
Because I don't really care for the way that Two-Face looks in Batman, or was it Batman and Robin?
Batman Forever.
Oh, Batman Forever. That's it. Yeah, Batman Forever. I've never really liked that look. I thought, I understand that you're trying to convey the difference between, the two sides of Harvey Dent, but I don't think that works very well.
I can see there being many discussions about what's too scary for kids.
Yeah.
Right. I could see that. Yeah. I mean, the makeup aside, just talking about the suit itself. Yeah. It's a loud.
Yeah.
Evil side where it's like it's like zebra print and tiger stripes and stuff and
extends to his interior decorating choices.
Yeah.
In his apartment that's half and half down the middle.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, going back to those, like that's another thing. Those movies, like I said, I think Batman and Batman Returns are Tim Burton thinking he's doing 66. That's Batman 66 through a Tim Burton filter. Forever and Batman and Robin are Batman 66 through a Schumacher filter.
Right.
That is a Batman 66 Two-Face.
Yeah.
That's straight up what they think they're doing.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Which is ironic because when we finally do get a Batman 66 take on Two-Face, it's awesome.
Right. In the animated.
In the animated
videos.
It's terrific. But yeah, I mean that's it's one of those I mean, Riddler's fine, I guess. They go a little too far with that too. I thought it's a little glammy. We get a glammy Riddler.
I think the mask looks good.
Yeah,
I do. Because it hugs his face and it's form fitting, but like it doesn't. You don't see like a string. Like when you see the back of his head, like it doesn't go all the way around his head. I think it's a neat look.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just me, but
it works.
Yeah. I'll say this about the new one, about the Pattinson one, which I'm not going to make too many snap judgments about it because we've just seen the trailer and stuff and just set pics. But so far, I'm not impressed with the suit. I don't think I like the suit very much.
You talking about the Riddler? Or you talking about?
No. I'm talking about Batman himself.
Oh, okay.
And what's this? The Batman is what they're calling it, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Again, I don't know,
the Batman.
So you don't get confused with all the other Batmen.
Yes.
Right.
This Batman right here.
I don't want to hold set pictures against it because, that's taken from a guy in a tree.
Right.
Sure. Like on his phone shooting down at the, down when they're filming outside or they're at lunch in between takes or something,
Mm-hmm.
Which I think tends to be right because it's usually now the first look of the suit we get is like paparazzi photograph from like the actor like walking to their trailer in the suit, and everybody judges on like, oh, it looks terrible.
Sure, sometimes.
You know what I mean? And my thing is, you guys can back me up on this, maybe or not. Like, my thing is like, I'm not seeing how the filmmaker's intending it to look there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I won't even look at those behind the scenes stuff just because I know it's not a representation of what it'll look like in a finished product. After color correction, after lighting, after just the camera work, the aperture choice, like everything goes into making a movie a film image on a screen that's not, from somebody's cell phone from 50 paces or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, so sometimes effects that you're not seeing,
right,
that are going to be applied to it also. Like, I remember that was a thing with the Jamie Foxx Electro, right? Like, there were set pictures that came out when he was in the hoodie. I remember there was like LED lights on the inside of the hood.
Right, like the hood edge was ringed with LED lights.
Yeah, and there was a lot of...
why is he wearing LEDs? Like, why does he have lights in his hood?
Yeah, everybody was like, that's stupid. And Clifton, you pointed that out. You're like, that's lighting thing. Like, there's going to be an effect on top of that. That's just the light.
Like, they want him to glow. Yeah. And it's easier to... It'll look better if it's a real light that creates the glow, and they can just paint out the light sources easily rather than adding the whole glow in effects, which would look bad.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was what it was. And then if you go to the movie, like that's the shots. His face is glowing in the hood because they put real lights on it and then just painted out the LED light sources.
Yeah.
And then real quick, well, let's talk Freeze and Ivy.
Okay.
So, did we like any of Mr. Freeze?
I mean, no, but like by that time I got what they were going for. So
right.
It works in their context. Okay. It's just not a good context.
Right. I like when he's in the bathrobe and the slippers and he's doing the sing along.
Right.
To the Year Without a Santa Claus. Yeah. That's what he's singing. The Heat Miser, Cold Miser.
He's in the bathrobe with the ascot and
yeah. No, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I it's one of those again. In context, I guess, but it's also, how bad can you mess up Poison Ivy?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's hard to say I was let down because I knew what I knew what to expect going in.
You were braced for the punch, Clifton. Right. I knew what was coming, so I steeled myself to it. But
I deserved it for being there.
Right.
Yes. You co-signed on it, so there you were. No, I remember, at the time thinking, oh, cool, Uma Thurman's going to play Poison Ivy. That could be pretty cool. And then just not enjoying what they did with it.
I don't dislike it. I'm not disappointed by it either. It's, okay. I mean, I can't say that they didn't try with Poison Ivy. I mean, like that's what she wore at the time.
Right. And again, like I think it's a very they were like, what would Batman 66 do?
Right.
If Poison Ivy had been in 66 Batman, and that's what they came up with.
And then Bane's in that movie too, right?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Who plays Bane, the wrestler?
Jeep Swenson.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
You didn't just make that name up. It's okay.
No.
Sure.
No, that's in my head. I remember that. Like,
all right.
Yeah. So I'll throw out a couple that I think to me like turned out like magnificently.
Okay.
I think like these are some of my favorites, and some I'll point out just aspects of it that I like. What I like about the Netflix Daredevil, is I like the headpiece. Actually, that's one where like I think the thing with cowls and masks and stuff like that, there can be a point where it makes the head look too big.
Sure, yeah. Gets too bulky.
Right? Which I think can be odd. Right. I think can be odd, right? Like I'm looking at Snake Eyes in the second G.I. Joe movie where it's like he's wearing a motorcycle helmet. And I'm just like, it makes him look like a lollipop.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? But I thought
a very, very quiet lollipop.
He's a bobblehead.
Right. I thought they did it really well in Daredevil. I thought like it looks proportionate to what he's wearing.
Right. It tapers off towards the bottom, which helps. So it's not like a big bulge coming out of the side of his neck.
Yeah. And so I think it looked. I think it looks. I think the boots are too clunky for him, and I don't like that when you get to wide shots, you get like you could see shoelaces.
Yeah.
Which is a stupid nitpicky thing because like how else is he going to put it on? But it's just like for that character, I imagine something thinner and smaller where he would be more like fleet-footed.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, he's a ninja.
And agile.
He's a ninja.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the other thing is like, from almost from the beginning, he's been depicted as his costume is pretty much, skin tight.
Right.
Every ripple of every muscle is evident in Daredevil.
But I do like his Netflix costume for the most part too.
Yeah, no, I do too. I think it's a great costume. I think it works really well. But
I think Black Manta and Aquaman looks awesome.
Yeah.
I think it looks fantastic. That's one where it's okay for the head to look as big as possible.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
You want him to look like a mushroom.
Yeah.
Yes, it should be the size of a manta on a man's head.
Yeah.
I agree.
And I mean, and truthfully, I think all of the suits in that movie, I think Ocean Master looks really cool when he dons the orange and the green. I think it looks good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, I don't have anything bad to say about any of the costumes in that movie. I think it looks really good. Deadpool. I think Deadpool may be one of the best translations to screen ever.
Yeah, right. I think so too.
You know, because they even got like the little tail at the back of his mask, like it's a sock, but it isn't.
Right. Like the little dangly nub.
Yeah. And so I'm going to throw in 90s Ninja Turtles. I still think those look incredible.
I was thinking Ninja Turtles too when I was thinking of stuff for it. Because it just looks surprisingly good.
It does.
It's Jim Henson Creature Shop created the animatronics and everything that went into their faces to give them expression. And they did a great job on it.
Yeah.
Like, I buy it.
Yeah.
Go ninja, go ninja, go ninja, go.
And there's a cool design detail with like the musculature where it doesn't like it looks like muscles, like they're toned, but it doesn't look like they're flexing.
Right.
All the time. You know what I mean? It looks kind of like a natural muscle at times, which I think is neat.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still just blown away every time when I see like, wow, there's an actor actually in that.
Right.
With like a scuba tank on his back doing a backflip. You know what I mean? I'm like that. I'm stunned at that. I wish that there was more behind the scenes like footage of those movies of like those guys like practicing and stretching and that stuff, because I would love to see that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, that's like a Cirque du Soleil like feat that I'm just like, my God. Just wearing that and walking, I think, is incredible. And you're doing backflips?
Right.
Yeah. So those are kind of my tops. I think that those all like you know, went beyond expectation for me.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the ones that like stand out to me, almost all of the Iron Man stuff, I think translates incredibly well.
Yep.
To film.
Yeah.
There's some I like less than others, but overall, like even extending to War Machine, and everything, like it always looks good. I'm going to give a shout out to the Titans show, which was on DC Universe and is coming to HBO Max, because I think they do a really good job on costumes almost all the time. For a TV show, especially for a TV budget and having a big cast of characters in suits. Mm-hmm. Some of the ones that I think stand out really well are, I mean, like the Robins, I'm convinced, like I buy the Robin suits no matter who's wearing them in the show.
That's a nice Robin suit.
Because there's multiples.
Even I'll say really quick, even the Batman Forever Robin costume I really like too. Mm-hmm. I'll say that too. But yeah, I think the Robin suit in Titans looks great.
Yeah. And then the one that is a hard one to pull off and they nail perfectly is Hawk and Dove.
Yeah.
Because like if you look at a comics Hawk and Dove, you will not think that will ever translate to live action.
Yeah, I still haven't seen Titans, but the stills I've seen of their costumes, I was blown away at how good they were.
Yeah, and they work just as well, like on screen moving.
Okay, cool.
With the two of them,
Gotcha.
they misstep a little bit. They're Ravager. They do Rose Wilson. Her helmet's bulky. It's the problem you were talking about with Snake Eyes. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, like everyone else looks great.
Yeah.
And her, for the most part, looks good. I just wish they'd done another pass on her mask.
Mm. Yeah, and it's you brought up Iron Man, which shockingly hasn't come up yet, too. And the thing that I think is cool with that is we poo-poo Green Lantern so much because it was a CG suit, right?
Right.
And I'll bet not you know, it is what it is. Whatever, you know, they tried something new, but. By the time we get to Endgame, Downey's not wearing a suit. Like, that's all CG.
Neither is Tom Holland. Tom Holland's all CG, too.
Yeah, like, that's all CG.
Yep.
You know, like my understanding is Downey wears, like, kind of a chest plate for reference for, like, one take. And then it's like, okay, now let's take this off of me and I can get some actual, like, range of motion and stuff like that. And it's all going to be put on after.
Yep.
And none of that looks bad. It looks great.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, for me, if I'm talking like my favorite stuff of all time, I would have to go with. I still think we never got a better Superman costume than Christopher Reeves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I still think that standout. That costuming alone. I think, like you were saying, Zach. I think Superman costumes have gotten progressively worse.
Mm-hmm.
Live action. I think like some of the TV stuff is not bad, but I think generally, I'm not a fan.
When the actor in Superman and Lois has got the Fleischer suit on for that one shot.
Oh yeah, no,
I think that one's really cool.
Oh, it's great. I hope we get more flashback stuff with that. That would be terrific. But I'm not a fan of the non trunks onesie look. I don't really care for it. I'm glad they've gone back to it in the comics. That he's wearing the trunks. I think it helps break up the blue. I think it looks better.
I think they make the cape too long too. Is the thing.
Yeah, but I think that Christopher Reeves Superman. I think again same thing with Linda Carter's Wonder Woman. I don't think we've got a better live action Wonder Woman costume. Mm-hmm. I still like that one a whole lot. I think in the earlier episodes where she's kind of wearing like the skirt, I think that works better. But and then oddly enough, I thought in stills and in motion, I thought the Stargirl costume really is a good
from
costume.
The TV show?
Yeah, I think that really looks cool. I think it's functional.
Yeah, they did a great job with her.
I think they did a great job on that as well. So it's one of the ones that I'm like recently. I'm like, no, that's what she looks like. That's what she looks like in the comics for sure. There's no muting of the colors. There's no nonsense. It looks like Stargirl through and through.
Yeah, I think the '90s Flash is still the best Flash that they've done too. Like the '90s TV show, Flash.
John Wesley Shipp.
Yeah, you're talking about the John Wesley Shipp one.
It is big and it's a bullet. And more similar to Batman '89 than I think anything else. But I think it looks really, really neat. I mean, compare that to the Justice League. Like, I hate the Justice League Flash costume. Like, he looks like a robot.
Well, yeah, I mean, because we've talked about it. At least I don't know if we've talked about it on the podcast. I've talked about it in reality, in real life, about the fact that the last thing you want when you're running is something that's going to drag you.
Yeah, it's so clunky, and
that costume is so clunky and looks like every bit of it is designed to slow him down when he's supposed to be sleek and fast, and that costume does not convey that at all.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So there's a redesign for the Flash. I hope that we'll get whenever that movie comes out. Yeah, but no, I'm happy you brought up Superman because that's just Christopher Reeve. That's just him in a suit.
Yeah,
that's no muscles. That's
Yeah, that's the dude.
Yeah.
So
and there's a muscle padding to the Shazam costume in the movie that I like to it because it should look a little like wishful thinking-ish, right? Like I think he should be. I don't want to say like there should be something magical to it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't want to say it should look fake. It shouldn't, right? But it should look unnatural in a way, I think, right? It should look.
It's designed to, again. These costumes are designed to draw your eye, whether it's on the page or whether they were. I mean, again, it's that bit in Superman where it's like the guy, the stereotypical black guy in the movie is like, nice threads or whatever he says to him. It's designed. I mean, that you would someone wearing think about it this way. Anytime you ever go into like a convention. And someone with a really good cosplay costume passes by you, you stop to check it out because it's not something you see every day. And I think that would be times 1,000 if someone just landed out of the air in that costume or swung down, from a roof in that costume. You would be, a bit taken aback by whatever they're wearing.
Right. Yeah, I'm with you. So, any last good ones we want to get in before we start closing out? Any Constantine references? Because that's easy. Just trench coat and a tie.
I think the Matt Ryan one's pretty great.
Yeah, no complaints. I think he pulls it off, beautifully. I
think that I've enjoyed his performances as Constantine. I think and then I think the costuming sells it easily. So
yeah. All right. So to close out, we're going to go around and we're each going to list a costume design from the comics that we desperately want to see translated into live action. But first, if you like the show, you can check out all of our episodes on YouTube and letmeknowhowitis.com. Just please, however you find us, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a review. Finally, if you have any ideas for a topic on the show, you can send them our way on Twitter or in the comments. Our Twitter handle is our show's initials, LMKHII. All right, so who wants to go first? What's a costume you can't wait to see them do in movies or TV?
I was super excited and I was disappointed on a lot of levels. The fact that the Ava DuVernay, I hope that's saying her name right, the New Gods isn't being made,
right?
Because I was really looking forward to like Mr. Miracle. I'm gonna give a couple. Like I want to see Miracle on the pop on the big screen in those colors.
Right.
I really wanted to see how they were going to do Orion
on his cycle, on his hover cycle thing.
Yeah, exactly. And then I was really hoping to see how they were going to do Barda.
Right.
Yeah.
All those New Gods, especially with the fact when we got, I don't know if we've talked about Eternals a couple times on the podcast, especially when I had the high hopes for what the Eternals costumes are going to look like. And those things are just the dullest kind of like subdued. Why are we back in the 90s afraid to show those Kirby costumes are awesome. The Eternals costumes. I don't know if they're practical for shooting or not, but at least they look, visually they're really cool designs. And I think Kirby did the, same thing with the New Gods. And it bums me out that the Eternals are so bland. And I was really hoping that we would finally be able to see like the New Gods done at least costume wise well, if the story was not great. But I didn't think that the story wasn't going to be great.
Right. Yeah, I think the Eternal stuff I think looks in the same family as the rest of the Marvel stuff. Like it looks like it's made in the same way that the Thor.
Do you? Because I don't. I think to me they're afraid of the color red for some reason. Like red is a color that Icarus should have all over his costume, and for whatever reason they shied away from it, and I don't understand why. I don't get it. It's a subdued dark blue, and that's it. Okay. And again, if you look at any of those characters from like the Kirby stuff. And again, especially after Ragnarok, after Thor Ragnarok and Taika Waititi going like, no, there's a practical way to give us Kirby stuff. They should have not dialed it back to what I feel is literally costumes from the 90s where we're afraid of big, bold colors, which comic books are based on.
Right. Okay. I'm with you though with the New Gods. Yeah. I think Orion on his little hover thing would be awesome to see.
His astro harness I think would have been really cool to see.
Yeah,
but yeah, I was definitely looking forward to Miracle and Barda, however they're going to do them, and if they were going to embrace. I wanted Ava DuVernay to just wrap her arms around all that Kirby stuff and be like, no, we're not afraid to show you that. So, but we're not getting it now. So,
Clifton, Tommy,
I mean, I'm looking forward to one that's coming.
Okay,
we'll see, and that is Moon Knight.
Okay, cool.
Because I've talked about Moon Knight here before, and it is coming as a Disney Plus show. I believe finally confirmed is Oscar Isaac as Mark Spector after being long rumored. I think confirmed now, or just maybe more rumored. I don't know. It's hard to keep track on those. But I'm really interested to see how they do it, because Moon Knight's very much known for his costume over the years. It's a dynamic costume. Being all white or silver. It was silver in the first appearance, but then it later changed to being depicted as white. But I also would kind of like to see the one from the 2014 Moon Knight run, which is just Moon Knight in an all white suit with a white mask, which I thought looked really cool. And that was the Declan Shalvey art.
Yeah.
Is that the Mr. Knight look? Is that what they call it? I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. When he rides around in a white limo.
Yes.
In his white suit and white mask.
Yeah, because I purposely shied away from Moon Knight because that was the one, like, hoods are tough.
Right.
Hoods are tough to, Arrow will tell you that.
Right.
Right.
Hoods are tough.
And he was always stylistically drawn too. So like if his hood was up, his face was always all black.
Yes.
Except for his eyes, because that's how like Sienkiewicz would draw it. So they would always play a lot with like different stylization on him. Yeah. That I'm interested to see how might translate.
Okay, cool. Moon Knight's a good pick. Tommy, who's yours?
Oh, I was gonna go something I didn't think they're gonna be able to pull off, but Clifton. When you said with Moon Knight, it made me think, to tone it down, my first reaction, to start off, my first reaction on what my thought was gonna be was Lady Death or Power Girl, just to see if they have the gall to do it. Like,
Right.
I just want to see if they have the, for lack of a better term, chutzpah to do it.
Yes.
But now it made me curious to think what they're gonna get with She-Hulk.
Yeah.
Because every iteration of her costume is just her wearing a leotard or a onesie,
right,
that stops at her thighs. So it'd be interesting how they tone that down for Disney Plus.
Okay.
Yeah, I wonder if it's going to be a lot of her fighting or doing stuff in her lawyer clothes.
Yeah, the big
Right.
old pantsuit.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of I don't know if it's ever been collected. We'll probably get it collected for the show, but there's like a lot of like Alan Davis short stories or like small like stories here and there with her wearing like a long skirt,
Right.
and a jacket and the glasses, trying to try a case, and then something happens in Midtown and she's got to go take care of it and then come back and not destroy her clothes while she's doing it. Kind of stories,
right?
So but that's even still risque to have her busting out of a lawyer suit like 3 sizes too small or whatever,
right?
I mean, there's also like the full body suit Hulk gets to wear in Endgame.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That is
So I would have, had we done this episode a couple of months ago, I would have said Sam Wilson, Captain America.
Yeah.
But we got that recently, and I love it.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. But that was the one I was really craving. So now I'm going to stick with Marvel. I can't wait to see what Jonathan Majors looks like as Kang.
Yeah,
I cannot wait to see what that costume looks like.
Yeah, me too.
But we know that, supposedly that one's coming pretty soon.
Quantum Mania.
The other one is Galactus. I want a comics accurate Galactus so bad.
Yeah.
Oh God. With the big, pointy head and everything, just with all of its glory.
Just a giant guy standing there.
Yeah. Oh man. It's going to be so awesome. I can't wait for whenever they do that.
Yes.
We'll get it 2026 or something like that, maybe. I don't know. Can't wait. It's going to be a fun ride until then. But all right, listeners, hit us up on Twitter and in the comments. Let me know what you guys think about all the costumes in superhero movies and TV shows. As always, we'll post links and examples of everything we talk about on letmeknowhowitis.com. Please remember to like us and follow us on social media, and we will see you guys next time. Thanks.